else. Primarily, I'm not an audio engineer.
Yeah, likewise.
Welcome. We're back.
Howdy.
You are listening to the dulcet tones of the voices of three gamers. Gamers rise up. Am I right, everybody?
Oh no.
I'm gamer guys.
As the official spokesperson for the gamers of the United States of America, I am officially endorsing third-party libertarian candidate. No.
Gamers, please sit down.
Welcome. It's November 1st. You're listening to the Infinite Scale Podcast Network. 2 days from now, well, two days from date of recording. Who knows when I get time to edit this and upload it? I don't know. Hopefully tonight. 2 days from now, a very important event in the United States of America is taking place. The election. If you're listening to this and you live in the United States of America and you haven't already voted, please do that.
Do it. Yeah.
Exercise. As a gamer, we love having rights, right? We love controlling our own destiny, our own future. Have a say in your destiny.
What's
by
the worst that
casting
can
your
happen?
vote. Yeah, right, exactly. I think it goes without saying, we all know who you should be voting for. Third-party libertarian candidate. Yeah, go ahead.
Just pretend like this is a change of era in Age of Empires when you have to pick your your leader for your empire.
Yeah. This is Warhammer, picking your Warhammer faction leader, Balthazar Gelt. Everybody, please pick Balthazar Gelt as your... Now, if there was a political equivalent to Balthazar Gelt in the real canon of the United States of America, like, historically, who would it be?
This is choosing your faction,
like
2/3 of the way through New Vegas.
Yeah. We're already 2/3 of the way through our lives as well, so this is when the world will end.
Jesus,
relatively soon.
Of the way through.
Anyway,
it's a optimistic outlook right there.
Yeah. I'm William Chandler, of course, joined by Sean Petersohn and Tyler Williams, as always. Welcome back, gentlemen.
It's good to be here.
I'm glad, because if it wasn't,
As
I'd
always.
still make you be here anyway.
True.
So, we got some stuff to talk about. I hear that video games are coming out.
Really?
Well,
I thought they were all delayed.
well, yeah. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Depends on.
A video. Okay. Say what you will about the horrific machine that is Ubisoft. That sometimes seems as though a monolith of game production dislodging random fucking components from random video games that they've made over the years and combining them into one horrific superstructure, a super game, if you will. In this case, Watch Dogs Legion. Watch Dogs Legion came out. That game seems all right. I don't know.
Aside from bricking consoles.
Wait, I didn't hear about that. What is that? Xbox, right? Was it Xbox?
Yeah. I was gonna say, do
right.
I really have the hot news here?
No, yeah, go ahead. I heard, I didn't read into it, so if you have any more information, please.
I really don't, and I might get details wrong because I heard this from another podcast. But apparently
There are other podcasts?
No.
Yeah, it's crazy. Apparently some review outlets have said that they can't complete their reviews because the console they were using was bricked by playing Watch Dogs. Not all of them, obviously, but
wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like a Series X bug, right? On the Xbox, or not Series X. God, that's my first time making that mistake, and I guarantee you it will not be the last. Xbox One X, I believe, is what I heard was the console with the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so like bricking, like
so
totally dying, completely unrepairable, or
so I'm looking at it right now just to see if I got any details wrong, but apparently it's overheating the console because the console will give a notification that needs to shut down, and in some cases they didn't turn back on.
wow.
Yeah. And in other cases, I guess it had to cool off for a couple hours. But
that's insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe they should try wrapping it in a towel and
yep,
just getting it so hot that the heat sinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sensor that detects that it's overheated burns out, and then you can continue to play Gears of War 1 unrestricted. Yeah. Yeah, that I'd heard about that. I'd also heard. I have not played Watch Dogs Legion. I didn't even play Watch Dogs 2. I played Watch Dogs 1. I don't like those games. So
I like the idea of those games.
Yeah.
They have a lot of cool. I think they have a lot of cool concepts. I don't know. All the hackable shit seems pretty fun.
Yeah.
Like hacking.
Yeah.
As a gamer guy, you know.
Hacker
man, like being a hacker man.
Hacker man. Well, I hope you. I mean, as we all know, hacking in real life is just pressing triangle.
Yeah, it's just as fun as in video games.
But I don't know. They just didn't do it for me, and apparently this one seems pretty hit or miss depending on the crowd that you're in as well. So, I don't know. I don't even know why I brought that up. I don't know why I brought that up in the first place. I felt like I had a segue, but well, in 2 weeks.
You with terrible news.
Oh yeah. What I feel like the this, and then what do we have? Assassin's Creed comes out in like 2 weeks or something. The Viking one, Valhalla. Oh yeah, that's why I brought this up. The horrific monolith that is Ubisoft manages to release all their video games on time, I will say. Which is more than you can say.
Oh.
For Cyberpunk 2077. Delayed again.
Mm.
Delayed again. Listen, as a big fan, some might say the biggest fan of The Witcher 3.
Wow.
Self-proclaimed the biggest fan of The Witcher 3. I fucking loved The Witcher 3. I tolerated The Witcher 2 so I could have a save to carry over into The Witcher 3. That's dedication.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I CD Projekt Red seemed like a good development studio. Contrary to, I guess they're a good development studio in terms of making good video games, because apparently they are shitty to their people. So I hear as of late.
No.
But people they kind of put out a statement a while back saying that that they're in the final stretch of game development, and in order to see this game through, they were gonna crunch 100-hour work weeks all the way up until the game came out, and that was like a month ago. And then now here we are, about 2 weeks away from its release, or intended release, and then they've delayed it again. So
God.
I really feel for developers.
What is it like?
Yeah, those poor bastards, man.
So it was November 19th. And now it is let's see. Is it December 10th? Yeah, December 10th. So I hope that maybe those developers get to not have to work 100 hours a week, thanklessly toiling away in the video game mines in order to produce a product that will no doubt draw no small amount of ire from everyone, because the instant that you make a good video game, everybody hates you for some reason.
I just hope all the gamers that have to wait a few extra weeks will survive, because I don't know.
Think of the gamers. That's what why delay your video? Think of the gamers, guys. People, there are a lot of people
I
on
wish
message
somebody would
boards.
just consider the feelings of the gamers.
Yeah, no one ever thinks of the gamers. Yeah, there were people out on message boards complaining that they'd already like requested paid time off and stuff for this game. Which, I mean, like, hey, use your time off how you will. And I mean, theoretically, like, if the game, I feel like this was a pretty unexpected move. I didn't think they would delay it again. So I gotta say, I mean, if I was excited enough to request time off, which I might be, I would be a little bit miffed. But you know what? These things happen.
Yeah. Normalized delaying games.
Yeah, right. Life is just a constant cascade of misery and disappointment. Anyway, so what? I mean, who can even pretend to be surprised? So
we're setting a real mood for this.
I know.
It's just one of those, it's one of those weeks, right? It's one of those weeks. Am I right?
It's the pre-election episode.
It was the full moon last night.
The infinite scale mood board for this week that I have hanging over here is just all nihilism. It's like just old black and white war photography, and Russian literature.
And we're not helping by watching Bly Manor, a show designed to make you sad.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. It's a good one though.
What else we got? So you guys heard of this game Dark Souls?
No, I have heard of Mortal Shell though.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So from what I understand, Dark Souls is a Mortal Shell clone.
That's horrible. Why would somebody do that?
Yeah, it's basically they like took the Mortal Shell ideas and just ripped it off.
And they added 3 games.
Yep. They made 3 games after in the 2 months since Mortal Shell came out.
And you're telling me Cyberpunk's delayed? What the fuck?
Yeah, it's Japanese developers, man. They fucking know how to crank them out.
They're just going.
So Demon Souls. Demon Souls came before Dark Souls. In the far off year of 2009. And we've talked about this before. I don't know why I'm leading into this so much. The Demon Souls remake that they're doing, that is launching the day of the PlayStation 5, which is pretty much the sole reason why I might go wait in line for one of those consoles, is they've kind of done a tell-all about what exactly that remake is going to be, because people were not quite sure if it was going to be literally the exact same game, just new, beautified and kind of reimagined, I guess, or revisaged, because reimagined kind of implies that they would change some things. It seems like they have kept just about everything core to that game's being intact. They did a bit of an interview. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm gonna just crib from this Polygon article here. I watched. There's also a very good Vati video on this knowledge, if you are more of a watcher than a reader, which we all are. I mean, books, words, don't be ridiculous.
That's why I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. You guys play Demon Souls? You guys play the original at all? You ever get into it?
Nope.
Okay.
Fortunately not.
Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 mechanically are very similar. They feel extremely different, which I think you could say for every Souls game. Like, for whatever reason, the movement scheme changes in almost every one of these games, like the way movement feels. Demon Souls 1 almost feels more like Dark Souls 3 to me. It's kind of loose. It's kind of loose and fast. And yeah.
Just how I like them.
Oh yeah, buddy. Loose and fast, but not easy.
No, sir.
So, the director of the remake, Gavin Moore, he is overseeing the project at Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios, which is, they should really create an easier studio name. Basically, in this Polygon interview, he pretty much completely says that we're not going to be like, people are speculating they might add content. They're not going to do that. They're not really changing anything substantial about the way the game works. They're even going to keep some bugs in that they feel are like core to the
interesting.
Yeah, to like kind of the experience of playing the game.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I think like the AI even is the same, which is kind of an interesting thing because that's old, right? Like advancements in AI have come a long way since 2009. Well, not as maybe long as we wish, but so it's kind of interesting. But there is one big change that I think is I'm curious how this is going to affect it. So in Dark Souls, all of them starting at 1, if you roll in that game, you can roll in 8 directions, right? So the 4 main cardinal directions plus diagonals. In Demon Souls, you could only roll in 4 directions, which is up, down, left, or right. There was no diagonal. There was no diagonal rolling. And they are implementing that diagonal in the game from the later entries. That is like the one change that seems to me the most major. Well, actually, and there's one more. The healing grass, because this was before the Estus flask. The healing grass in Demon Souls, they're making it kind of have a weight in your inventory, and different grades of it, like different strengths, will weigh more. So like a stronger grass will weigh more. A stronger grass, brother. Roll that shit up, smoke it, get that health back.
Yeah, those mids.
Yeah, you start out with mids, and then you work your way up to alligator ceiling.
That alligator ceiling.
I'm reminded of this article. I think it was a hard drive joke article where it was like, podcast now just 2 hours of inside jokes.
Yeah, honestly,
because nobody else listening to this, and even Sean, I think, probably doesn't know about the time that we named a fake strain of weed alligator ceiling.
Yeah, I was just gonna go with it, just to not make it awkward for you guys.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Appreciate that. That's what I appreciate about you, Sean.
But yeah, I think the biggest disappointment is Demon Souls. It's pretty well known at this point that there was an entire area of that game that was cut out before its release. Basically, they just didn't have the time or the budget to complete it for whatever reason. It's never really been acknowledged that thoroughly by From Software. And Bluepoint Games, who's in charge of the remake, says that they didn't feel like it was right for them to restore content that wasn't in the final version of the game. Like it wouldn't be From's vision if they kind of created that area that was sort of intended and not even half finished,
Wow.
So I think that's what a lot of people were looking forward to, is the idea that maybe they would add to it. But it does not seem like that is the case. At least that's what they're saying. They could be bamboozling us, but
no, I think
it's weird to
that's
me.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. Cut content is cut for a reason.
Yeah,
in general.
I think it's. I can appreciate that they're like sticking to the original creator's vision and not taking matters into changing the game too much.
Yeah.
Appreciate.
I feel like when people think of cut content, the way they think of it is like, oh, more stuff from this universe that I could enjoy. But in general, you have to sometimes think that like there's a reason that it's not there. It might have been, the creators might have thought it was bad, or there's so many like things. So, Yeah. It won't
Yeah.
necessarily be a good thing if it was in there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that at the end of the day, I mean, it's interesting because like you always have the original to go to play theoretically. I mean, in this case, Demon Souls has never been playable on a platform outside of the PS3, so unless you have a PS3 hooked up just to play Demon Souls, like I do, you can literally see it right there. Then you can't play it, right? So I think the interesting thing is the truer they stay to the original vision and the original game, the more of a replacement for the original that this is. Which in some ways, like, is that necessary? Is this part of game preservation? Like, where does this fall on the spectrum? Like, theoretically, I mean, what they could have done is just ported the PS3 game to the new platforms and just made it playable, right? They didn't have to do a from the ground up remake. What does pouring all of that money into it serve unless they feel like it's well, I don't know. What is the onus there, I guess? Because like if this is just we wanted to sell this game again and make money, there was an easier way to do that, right? So
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that remakes like this exist, period. I think in the case of, this game is going to run better than the original. It hopefully will be at a more stable frame rate, and it's going to look a lot denser. The art direction is similar, I would say, but kind of different. Like a lot of the areas they're showing are so much more detailed and like fleshed out than what the original was. So it's kind of interesting because I don't know, like the argument of like, oh, I'm glad they're preserving the original game's vision is a little bit weird when they've already sort of re-wrapped it up in this whole new aesthetic, I guess. But I think mechanically, certainly, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I hope it's cool. I felt the same way about the Ratchet and Clank remake when that was coming out. Like, I was really interested in that because that game meant a lot to me as a kid. And then it came out, and it turns out that sometimes you can't see like from a trailer or whatever, you can't see the ways in which the game feels different or is changed, right? Yeah. Like the trailer for the Ratchet and Clank remake made it seem like that game was going to be incredible. And it looked like a very faithful recreation. Like they showed a lot of the same planets and blah, blah, blah. Then you realize that like they cut out parts of the game for some reason, and the lines are different and the characters are different, and they changed the story like in a slight way that doesn't really make as much sense. Like it was just so many weird decisions were made, and I'm hoping that this Demon Souls remake is not that. But you guys gonna play it?
Absolutely. I would have played Demon Souls already if it was easier to get my hands on.
I'm just getting started into the whole Souls genre. It never really interested me until recently, and so I kind of for some odd reason decided to start with Mortal Shell.
Great.
A game that is not that is not a Souls game at all for some reason, but mainly just because like I do want to. I feel weird starting with like 3 or 2 or something like that.
That's what I did.
And skipping like a whole game or two, and so and just getting into my biggest reason why I haven't done it honestly is because the original Dark Souls I have the what is it, the definitive edition or something like that, but the
Prepare
remastered
edition. Yeah,
I can't remember which one it's like. There's the full collection, like the full edition, and then there's the remaster, and apparently the remaster is the one that you need to play it like today, essentially. Yeah, the one you want. Otherwise you have to like have like a bunch of weird like bug fixes and shit like that.
That was why Sean just played Dark Souls 1 for the first time last year, and I remember he had played it right when that remaster came out, and I was like, I remember back in my day, you had to download 9 fan-made patches just to get the game to fucking work. And
just
sometimes
to make Blighttown playable.
Yeah, and sometimes you'd slide down a ladder and the whole thing would crash. Like it was just like I was like an old man.
To my grandfather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
I'm happy I did that.
You do need the the remastered edition to even have a little bit of a good time with that game.
And so it just fucking sucks because I already own the other edition, and I just can't justify buying.
Yeah, well, you bought the other edition 10 years ago.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember buying it. It's been so long that
You were living in. I'll tell you what it was. You were living in my house.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Like I remember walking in, and you were like, "How the fuck do you do this?" Like you're like just walking around.
So on Steam, I might be wrong about this, but it gives you a discount if you already own the original, right?
Yeah,
I don't think it was a.
I think it's like $20 if you.
Yeah, I paid full price.
Yeah. I mean, Dark Souls 1 is an incredible game that I think everybody should play. Here's what I will say. Starting with Mortal Shell is totally valid because you're getting the bad shit out of the way first. Like I don't think Mortal Shell is a bad game, and I will happily play it and maybe I'll enjoy it. But like so far, no similar Souls game like Lords of the Fallen or The Surge or any of those games that attempt to take those Souls mechanics and adapt them into another studio, like other companies basically borrowing those mechanics and ideas. Those games have ideas of their own, like Mortal Shell has the get hard shit where you get hard and then your raging hardness deflects attacks, stuff like that.
I like that.
That's a unique thing, and that is really cool. But the things that they don't get right are the things that they've stolen. You know what I mean? Like the ideas that are cribbed don't feel as good in a lot of those games. I think theoretically, if you played those games and then played Souls games, you would still get to enjoy those games, and then you get the main course, which is like. Yeah, you know, like, hey, I enjoyed Mortal Shell. I'm grappling with the way these games work and like how the combat is. Oh, now I'm playing Dark Souls. I now am armed with more knowledge getting into Dark Souls because I've already played games that are similar. I see the ways in which that this is a better thing. I think. So I don't think you lose anything by like playing that or starting with Dark Souls 3. Hell, Dark Souls 3, I think it mechanically is, well, I mean, unless Bloodborne, people have preferences between Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, but
yeah, Dark Bloodborne 3 actually interests me more. I feel like that is something that I really want to get to.
Yeah, you should. I think Bloodborne is both my most and least favorite of the Souls games all at the same time. And and just the ways in which that happens is something that you really only understand once you've like played all of them. Like, pick one that you like. Like, if you were interested in Bloodborne, that's exactly what Sean did. Sean played Dark Souls 3 first, didn't like it, was like, played Bloodborne because it was like his aesthetics, and then enjoyed it. And then that he like drinking weird blood, like drinking period blood is Sean's whole MO.
Yeah, I was like trying to think of okay, everything's dark, what else?
Everything's gothic. But he played through Bloodborne and enjoyed it, and then went back and played Dark Souls 1 and is now going through all of them. So really all it takes is for you to find one that you actually like and one that you're interested in to get you through. Once you finish one of them, you will enjoy all the others. Like they're all in, they will scratch that itch. It's like uncovering a new fetish or something. It's like you're like, wow, I didn't know I liked that, and I would have been scared of it before, but boy.
Well, yeah, Tyler was showing me. He was showing me like this sort of set piece NPC and Mortal Shell, and if you like stuff like that, like you'll have a good time with Dark Souls. It was like some weird, was it like a bird or something with like a skeleton chain or something?
Oh, cool.
It's this bird that has this like fully enclosed like metal like helmet that's like locking it in place, and it has all these chains like chaining it down.
Yeah. So the whole set PC like NPC thing is really big, especially in Bloodborne. I mean, in all of them, but like you'll find weird shit like that throughout all those games. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, just the act of turning a corner and being like, what the fuck am I going to see this time is like half of the reason to keep playing those things.
Seeing like getting grabbed by Amygdala for the first time in Bloodborne.
Yeah, just random shit. Yeah, and I mean, like, honestly, if you started, who knows how this is going to play out, but ideally, the PlayStation 5 will come with it some amount of Bloodborne improvements. Yeah,
That
I go ahead.
Bloodborne it's a PlayStation exclusive, right? That is the only platform to play it on.
For
Yeah,
now.
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
if you want to play Bloodborne, you have to play it poorly
Yeah.
in a mess. It's the only
Mm.
way. It's which is basically the same thing that happened to Demon Souls. It was trapped in like a messy console exclusive situation where they never ported it to another platform, but they also never like upgraded it or remastered it or whatever. Like Bloodborne was a it wasn't a PS. It was like 2014 or something. So it was like maybe 8 months or so after the PS4 originally came out, and the PS4 Pro wasn't even a thing. So it was like an original PS4 game, and it ran like doo doo and
Yeah.
continues to run like doo doo to this day. Not it's a 30 FPS lock, so not so much tied to frame rate. It's just the way that game is rendered, it makes it a stuttery mess in ways that I can't even. I mean, I'm not a fucking engineer, so I don't, but yeah, it's hopefully playing Bloodborne in 2021 will be a better experience because of a PS5 patch.
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
interesting. I didn't realize that it had run so poorly.
Yeah, I mean it's from software. I think Sekiro and Dark Souls 3 were the first games that they released on consoles that actually ran well.
Hmm.
Um, and it's interesting. They've always on consoles targeted 30 FPS, which to me is a problem because those
Yeah.
games require a level of finesse and precision that I think is hampered by a 30 FPS lock. Um, Even more damning is that in the case of Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls, and in some cases Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2, those games dipped below 30 FPS
Ugh.
in certain areas or depending on what was happening on screen. So I think they didn't really become technologically savvy until around the Dark Souls 3 Sekiro releases, which were like, okay, these games run well on every platform. They look good on every platform. Dark Souls 3 was the first time a PC version of a PC game of theirs came out that wasn't like kind of fucked. Dark Souls 2 on release was a little bit fucked up. Like it worked, which is more than you could say for Dark Souls 1 on PC, but it was just awkward and weird, and there was something off about like there were like no graphic settings and like all this stuff. And then instead of fixing it completely, they released Scholar of the First Sin, which included like patches and improvements to Dark Souls 2, but also changed the entire game in
What the
ways that
fuck?
I don't like. Anyway,
Was the first sin the game, the initial release?
the first
of the
sin.
game?
Yeah, the first sin was the video game
It
of
was
Dark
the
Souls 2.
video game.
I think what we can learn from these patterns is that when Bloodborne comes out and it's 60 FPS, it's going to be a remake.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it seems that is the way. But what's funny is that FromSoft has nothing to do with this remake. I mean, they gave them probably their blessing and maybe provided advice and whatever. But it doesn't really seem like From Software is interested in patching or updating their games to suit more modern consoles or hardware or whatever. Like it just seems like they just release something and then they move on to the next thing, which keeps their releases at like a solid cadence. Like you can expect a From Software game every 2 years, right? Um, but it does mean that like at the moment, it doesn't really seem like Bloodborne's ever going to be playable off of a PlayStation console, and that experience on the console is less than stellar, right? So I don't know, but so in 3 years, when the PlayStation 5 Pro comes out, uh, there will be a Bloodborne HD 4K remaster made by Bluepoint. No, but yeah, that's probably enough about that. What else did I say we were gonna do? Oh yeah, maybe we'll just talk about this really quick. You guys see that AMD shit?
No, actually, I missed it. I caught like somebody in the Discord was like, "Holy shit!" Like 3080 comparable cards for
yeah,
like,
that was me.
fucking like $600 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, so So AMD really announced the specs and pricing for their 6000 series cards, and the main thing to note is that this kind of is a bit of a surprise because in the past few generations, AMD has been a solid mid range option, but hasn't really competed with Nvidia on the high end. Um, and that's now changing. Um, Basically, AMD is doing what they did when Radeon came, or when Ryzen came out. You remember when Ryzen was coming out? The big thing with Ryzen was that they were basically giving similar performance to Intel processors, but at a like in some cases as much as
Yeah.
like $400 to $500 cheaper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that is basically that has been such a massive success for them that they, I mean, as a company, AMD has ballooned in recent years because of the success of Ryzen processors and basically providing stiff competition to Intel. And they're pretty much doing the exact same thing here with the Radeon six the RX 6000 series, um, calling it Big Navi. It's the architecture,
Big
Big
Navi.
Navi.
Dude.
I love putting the word big before literally
Big-
any word.
any-
It just
yeah,
makes
it's
anything
great.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Um, but yeah, it basically, so you can go to their website, and I did this a little bit earlier, and they have like benchmarks set up, and they seem completely like, you're used to the idea that companies will fudge numbers for things in
Yeah.
order to make them seem, more appealing, obviously, right? And the benchmark charts provide such a refreshing level of transparency in terms of numbers. Like, sometimes they don't perform nearly as well as the Nvidia card. Sometimes they perform better. Sometimes they're about the same. But it's interesting to see that level of transparency because it pretty much means that they it seems like they're being more honest with their numbers across the board. But yeah, so during this event they announced three cards. So they have the RX 6800, which is basically like the equivalent to a 3070.
Okay.
And that puts it at around a mid range. The 6800 XT, which is like their 3080 equivalent, um, and the 6900 XT, which is their 3090 equivalent. I think the main thing that's interesting about, like, the 6800 is a good value and it's a good mid range card, and it's a good alternative to a 3070. Um, I'm more interested in the other two, the two XTs, because they represent, I think, something a little bit more interesting, which is that, like, first of all, the 6800 XT is $650. That places it at $50 cheaper than the 3080, but it has uh, comparable performance, within 5-ish% of each other in a lot of cases that they're showing at 4K and 1440p, which seems to be the main resolutions that they're targeting with their benchmarks. The main thing is that it actually has a lot more VRAM than the 3080, kind of placing it in this interesting position where, as we go into the new console generation, oh yeah, don't forget, this is based on the same architecture that they're using in the new consoles. Both of the new consoles are RDNA 2 AMD powered. So the new consoles utilize AMD rendering for graphics as well as their CPU, and that conjunction, those two things working in tandem, is a large part of where the benefit and the uplift is coming in the console performance. Is like they've basically crafted this pipeline along with um, Microsoft. Microsoft's the only one who are talking about it, but basically, like, they're talking about this very, very fine-tuned pipeline of everything working in tandem that allows for the super fast loading times, that allows for, like, better RAM access timings and stuff like that. Like, just like, you know, so this architecture is based on the same stuff that they're using on the consoles. It's going to be similar, right? Um, So it's worth noting that if you had a Ryzen processor and one of these graphics cards going into 2021, 22, you might see some of the same benefits that the consoles get, in terms of that pipeline, which is interesting. They only sort of allude to that stuff because this is like just the announcement. They're not really getting super technical, and a lot of it is very buzzwordy. But like the ways in which this basically sticks it to Nvidia cannot be overstated. Like this is them being like, hey, we're in the game now, motherfuckers. Like, you got to pay attention to us. You can't just do whatever you want. Our most expensive card, which performs comparably to your most expensive card, is like $500 cheaper. You know what I mean? Like that's a big deal. The 6900 XT is $1,000 card. I paid $1,000 for my 2080 Ti 2.5 years ago or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that card is now getting trounced by even the $600 card that they have on display here. So tech seems to be moving a little bit faster when it comes to graphical power, certainly. But yeah,
I'm curious if they're gonna have some sort of AMD equivalent to ray tracing, like they have like the FreeSync to G-Sync. Do they have like a
Yeah, they talk about that.
A tracing or
big tracing.
Big tracing.
You know what's interesting? They don't have like a slick marketing name for it. They basically just call it hardware assisted ray tracing, which is the same thing as RTX. RTX, they talk about their tensor cores, which are like a separate part of the PCB that allows for hardware based ray traced rendering, as opposed to software. And AMD has the same thing in these cards. Now, I think the thing that's interesting is the RTX like ray tracing as a thing obviously is everyone has it, right? It's nonpartisan. It exists.
Right.
The pipeline that is used to generate those effects can be proprietary. So in the case of Nvidia, they have their RTX stuff or whatever. Their version of ray tracing is a proprietary software, a proprietary rendering pipeline. So basically, like, if a game uses this is going to start getting really weird, and it's going to depend on if anybody uses these over the Microsoft one that's built into DirectX 12. If somebody uses Nvidia's specific software to interact with ray tracing, it will not work on AMD cards, just like how FreeSync and G-Sync don't, finger quotes, work together. AMD made FreeSync open source, which means pretty much any monitor that supports G-Sync should also support FreeSync.
Right.
But obviously Nvidia has not been so kind. So they're keeping lock and key under most of their technologies. I can assume that this will go the same way, which is that, like, Nvidia has a vested interest in convincing companies to use their specific version of ray tracing, and they will probably utilize that, right? Like that is, I don't know. We'll see. Basically, like, if you're making, I don't know, fucking Tomb Raider 9 or whatever we're on now, and you need an easy middleware to allow your ray traced rendering lighting effects to be made easier, you're going to go with who pitches you best, right? Like the partnership or where you see the most benefit or whatever. So this could get really weird because I don't think there's been a recent technology that works this way for us. Like I was listening to Brad and Will made a tech pod a few weeks back, and they talked about the early days of graphics rendering, the early days of graphics cards. Back when your CPU rendered all of your graphics and your GPU was just basically an assisted to that. Like it's like nowadays almost all the graphics rendering is offloaded onto the GPU, right? Which in a lot of cases is specifically designed to do that stuff. Back then they were working in tandem, and so it still meant you needed a really good CPU. And they talked about how, like, some graphics cards were like, yeah, we have on this graphics card, if you run Quake 2, you get shadows. And if you buy this other card, you don't get shadows. Like, Shit like that, which is like something that doesn't happen anymore. Like everyone
Yeah.
has the same shit. Like pretty much everything runs the same. I mean, yeah, whatever. Like Nvidia had hair works where the hair moved. Whoa, but like nobody cared. Nobody used it, and it wasn't a big deal, right? Like hair still moves regardless. It's not like if you don't have hair works, your characters just are bald. Like that's not. So I mean, it's weird to be transitioning into this potential period where the graphics card that you buy might determine pretty drastically how your shit looks. But
Yeah, I think because, like you mentioned, the next generation of consoles are on the AMD platform. I think it'll be pretty.
yeah,
I think it's going to be a pretty fair split. Like, although Nvidia has like their fair share of the gaming community. I mean, if AMD's running consoles, then I don't think games are going to exclusively, you know, run ray tracing for Nvidia and not for AMD.
yeah. It's worth mentioning that the PS4 and the Xbox One were also AMD platforms. So AMD has been the go-to for consoles for a while.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Switch, which I think runs Tegra, which is NVIDIA.
Oh, interesting.
Is that right? I used to know this. Oh, well. But, yeah. Yeah, so, did you guys buy an AMD card next time you're buying a graphics card?
No.
No,
man.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I feel like I have brand loyalty to Nvidia now. Like they've done well by me, and although they are more expensive, same with Intel. Like it's been what I've always used, and I mean, I don't know if the AMD cards get like really fucking hyped up, and they're the data is showing that it's comparable enough, then yeah, sure, why wouldn't I save the money? But I mean, until that,
well,
you'll know those hard facts.
You'll know in about 2 weeks. They come out shortly after the consoles. I think they come out on the 18th.
Yeah. Well, plus that, and I just bought this 2080, so I'm not in the market for graphics card for a while, anyways. So yeah. I'm content. I don't need the next generation cards for a bit yet.
Yeah.
I use my 970 for like fucking ever.
Yeah.
For a really long time. So I hope this one will last me.
Yeah, you'll be good for a while.
But
you'll be good for a while.
We'll see.
What were you going to say, Sean? Sean, you're running a Ryzen CPU, I believe.
Yeah, I think I am in the market to get a new card, I think. But for me, would you say like the difference in price between those two cards you gave as an example is like $50, right?
Yeah.
See, that's not enough of a savings for me for the amount of time that I would have that product. I would probably be more leaning on the performance side of things. Like if the AMD cards if there was some sort of like superior thing with them, I would get one of those. But for the savings, I would just get like an NVIDIA card, like the better alternative. I don't know what I'm going to get, but you keep a graphics card for so long that like that's just not justifiable to me.
Oh yeah, but I think the idea is that it's $50 cheaper and theoretically they perform the same, right? Mm-hmm. So there's an automatic. Yeah, I mean, who cares about $50 if you're buying a $600 thing or $650 thing, whatever? $700 suddenly doesn't seem like that much of a difference. But I think the main consideration is that it has considerably more video RAM, and that might, going into the next generation of games running on new platforms, that might be the difference between rendering something better, right?
Sure.
We don't know yet. That's the thing. So they perform similarly now. The idea is, how are these cards going to age? You also, I think it's worth considering that NVIDIA, there was a leak that they had plans to release a version of the 3080 with more VRAM. Okay. And who knows if that'll be priced the same or priced higher or whatever. But I mean, in terms of just raw silicon, you are getting more money for you're getting more for your money by buying the AMD card at the moment. In theory. I mean, these things haven't even been out in the wild yet. They don't come out for 2 weeks. We probably won't see reviews for like a week and a half. So it's going to really depend on that stuff. But But I mean, it's just like Ryzen. It is an undisputable fact that you are getting way more for your money by buying this card. Well, way more, finger quotes, with the potential to see even further improvements. Now, the caveat there is that NVIDIA has always had better driver support. They are a massively larger company than AMD, and they are capable of basically releasing a driver for almost every major game release, which AMD doesn't have a habit of doing or didn't in years past. I haven't kept up with it, right?
Yeah, I'll have to do some research, I think.
Yeah.
I don't particularly have brand loyalty, but I feel like depending on what information is available to me,
Totally.
that'll kind of inform what I get.
Yeah.
I am a big person for like convenience, and I feel like that whole driver thing, I use that pretty regularly. I try to keep those updated, so that's definitely a plus too. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, there's also the fact that if you wanted to buy a 3080 right now, you can't. You just cannot do it.
Yeah, that's true.
As somebody who sometimes tries, I actually had a notification pop on my shit today going Newegg telling me that they had 3080s in stock. Literally the minute it popped up, I clicked on it and they were sold out.
Do you think that this is like a because I feel like it's not like a Bitcoin thing anymore. It's just that everybody's like at home, right? So like computer hardware is just because it's hard to get like webcams now too, right? Do you think computer hardware in general is just kind of expensive and hard to get at the moment?
I mean, webcams are different because that is a piece of technology that everyone can use, right? If you're a teleconferencing soccer mom who wants to keep up with her friends in the other state or whatever, or you're a fucking you are an investment banker and you weren't working from home before and now you have a webcam, or now you have to work from home, you need a webcam, right? You got to buy one or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think it's really just this is more symptomatic of the fact that people play more video games now.
I should have put it more in that context, like more on the side of like people playing video games in general. Anybody who has the potential to buy this stuff is more likely to be buying it right now because they're, spending more time at home. Maybe
we don't have numbers of how many were made, so like, it's tough to say where these are going and who is the market, right? Like you would assume it's people like us who play a lot of video games, but I mean, there's also people who need workstation cards. People like the 3090 is supposedly a better graphics rendering, like if you're a 3D artist or something like that. Like the 3090 is the choice du jour of perhaps like video, like After Effects editing or 3D graphics rendering, like things like that. Like those people also need these cards, like and so how where the split of the pie is, it's hard to say, but I do think in general, with people being at home, it's the same reason the PS5s are sold out and Xbox Series X's are sold out. It's that everyone's at home and they got to have shit to do. And so it just kind of, at the moment, technology is so integrated into what you do on a daily basis. Everybody's thinking about it. People aren't. I mean, walk outside in Chicago. Every time you see somebody on the street, they're wearing like workout clothes because they're leaving their house for 3 minutes at a time. You know what I mean? Like nobody's dressed. Like I haven't seen a guy in regular clothes in months. Like like everybody's just wearing their Lululemon fucking pants and whatever. It's weird. It's strange, but I mean, I get it. Like people, your life is fundamentally different now, right? Like you are not spending as much time outside of your dwelling. If you're lucky anyway, right?
This is just going to be the end of professional clothing.
Oh yeah, this is the final blow. It was already happening, but this is the thing. Yeah, we'll see. I have two G-Sync monitors, so me buying an AMD card feels like a tacit admission that I wasted that extra money. But also I've had these monitors for. I mean, this Dell monitor that I'm looking at right now is almost 6 years old, and my ultra wide is almost 4 years old. So it's, I mean, shit's getting wild, for sure. Like I'm shocked that these have stayed relevant as long as they have. But so maybe it's time for a sea change. Maybe I'm an AMD guy going forward. Give me a bunch of FreeSync shit. AMD shirt, hat,
AMD ads on your podcast.
AMD ads on my podcast. Speaking of, now here's a message from our sponsor.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah,
Big
right.
Navi.
Yeah, Big Navi. Don't you hate it when you're trying to render? You're loading into your favorite video game, and this happens. Oh man, there's got to be a better way. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Buy AMD today. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. I don't think I have any other news. Anybody have anything? Anybody have anything happening?
Oh yeah, man.
What you got? What's happening?
Got that. World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, can't forget it. Shadowlands officially.
Raid Shadowlands
officially being released until they postpone it again. November 23rd.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of delays, that got delayed pretty big, right?
It's supposed to be out already. Like,
it's supposed to be out weeks ago.
Yeah. Last week or week before. Yeah.
Okay.
It was supposed to be out. So we're still pre-patching.
Mm-hmm.
Still hanging out in the pre-patch, vibing.
Mm-hmm.
All things considered, though, it's a pretty good pre-patch. We played a little bit of it, just a minute, doing the Chromie, trying to select your timeline that you want to go through.
Yeah, that was a bit of a hassle.
Yeah. But the cool thing now is you play 50 is currently the cap. With the next expansion, 60 is going to be the cap. And
yeah, they squished all the levels. It was 120 before, right?
Yep. Now it's down to 50. If you are a first-time player, they put you through an introductory that'll get you through level 1 to 10, and then from there you select whatever campaign most interests you, and you play 10 to 50 in that one expansion, which is pretty neat. A pretty cool way to do it. I'm glad that
it really makes you want to make multiple characters. Like, I'm gonna do I really want to do the Lich King, which is the last major expansion that I really got into years and years ago. So
you're saying now is there's never been a better time to be a new World of Warcraft player?
That's pretty much true.
I would actually say that
it's the least confusing it's ever been, which is a low fucking bar. Don't get me wrong; it's still pretty overwhelming, but it's the least confusing it's ever been.
No idea. Yeah, you'll have no idea what's going on. You'll have zero investment in any of the characters. But you'll get to see some cool stuff. Yeah, maybe, kind of. Yeah. The nice thing too is you can play any of the dungeons from any of the campaigns at any level.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so when you queue for Dungeon Finder, you literally queue for
thousands of
every
dungeons.
possible dungeon, which is pretty wild. Yeah. I think you can. Well, I think you select your expansion initially, and then after a minute or two, it's like, hey, you've been in the queue for a while. Would you like to expand to all of the dungeons? And if you click yes, then it's just boom, here you go.
That's badass.
Opens it up. So yeah, it's nice because that for a while, if you were a DPS trying to queue for a dungeon, you had a fucking 15-minute wait time, and it was just such a pain. And
it's kind of like how Final Fantasy does it. You can queue for anything all at once, and you play any dungeon, and it automatically just scales your level to match.
Yeah, but that's a bad game. So.
I mean,
I know. There's probably gonna be a lot of people that are that would maybe staunchly disagree, but I did not care for that game. Anyways.
It's kind of wild just how much that game seems to have influenced later World of Warcraft decisions. The existence of Final Fantasy XIV seems to have actually, because prior to that, WoW, even whether they were losing or gaining subscribers or whatever, just seemed to not. Blizzard was just I don't know, we're just doing our thing, and it kind of seemed like Final Fantasy was the first MMO to really. Oh, this is actually, we have a competitor. I mean, they'll never have as many subscribers as World of Warcraft. It's physically impossible, but it's I know a lot of people personally, and myself included, switched from WoW to Final Fantasy for some amount of time because that game was doing things that were at least interesting for an MMO. And then WoW seems to have taken a lot of those good ideas and done them less well, in my opinion. But
yeah, well.
I think the core mechanics of World of Warcraft being as smooth as they are is what keeps that game in business. Like playing World of Warcraft has always been a very it's like you just kind of get into a groove. And Final Fantasy 14 was very much not that. You have to wrestle with that game in some cases. But I understand why people don't like it, but those people are wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing that this pre-patch has done that's really cool is it's opened up a lot of the content that like has just been kind of neglected for a long time. Like there was never a reason to go back to like Pandaria if you once you've like passed that point, like why the fuck go back until they did the old god Nazoth stuff there, whatever. Like, now everything is viable again. Everything is open. Like you can kind of move and go to different points. And that's one of the cool things that I don't think we had mentioned before. So if at whatever point you'd get tired of running a certain expansion's content, you can just go back to Chrome and be like, hey, I want to change to this one now. And you start fresh in that one again, which is cool. I think it's interesting.
I think it's a really smart way for them to it's a smart way for them to onboard people and to keep people engaged. It basically, I mean, effectively, you just increase the amount of content in that game by a factor of 10, right? Like you
absolutely
can do everything now in a way that was not easy or immediately obvious before. And I think that's like super cool. And I think there's story problems with how, like, I mean, this game's, who even knows what's happening in World of Warcraft anymore? And if you say that you do, I will make you explain it all to me right now.
And it'll take fucking hours.
Yeah, I mean, there's no... I've lost the thread so many years ago that there was no chance of me ever picking it back up again. Like, but this kind of arguably makes that problem worse, which is that like you're playing everything out of order now, and you have no idea at what point, like, where am I? What's happening? Like, so, like, if you were coming into this fresh, you'd be like, all right, I'm on the noob island, level 1 to 10. Wait, what's happening here? Oh, okay, I'm going somewhere else. Now I'm in Pandaria. Now I'm in Northrend. What's happening here? Wait, who's this guy? Yeah.
The new players, all new players have to go through the latest expansion. So you go 1 to 10 on the island, and then
really?
you don't get the option. You have to play 10 to 50 on the newest expansion. And then on your next playthrough on New Game Plus, you can do any content you want.
Oh, I didn't know that. So you have to play through BFA, which is the worst expansion, arguably.
Well, yeah. I'm not a huge fan of BFA, personally either, but it wasn't awful.
It just made me want to go to sleep.
Great. Just wasn't great. Yeah. But they've unlocked flying in a lot of the old zones where if you hadn't done it previously, now you can, which is cool. They made the allied races a good bit easier to get if those interest you. If you want to be a fox person, you can do that. Which
tell me more.
Now I'm interested.
Yeah, I'd rather
tell me.
not.
Listen,
I'd rather not tell you more.
What's? Can I lift up the tail?
Can you be a cat boy?
I'm gonna go back to our roleplay server that we used to be on and become a fox person who marks their territory aggressively.
I'm scenting all over the place. Disgusting. Anyways, I'm done talking about this now. Thanks for ruining it.
You're welcome.
Next topic.
You're welcome.
This is what happens when anime people talk about World of Warcraft.
It's my job to take everything you love and make you not love
make
it
it not
Yeah.
so anymore. Thanks.
Um,
It's not a hard job, honestly.
No, yeah. Just make Tyler love anything, and eventually he will get mad at it.
Yeah.
Just bring up Fox people.
Yeah. Oh god.
There is a direct correlation between how much Tyler loves something and how angry he gets playing it.
It's very true. That is very true. They steeply incline and then immediately fall off.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster. Cool. Well, any other news? Do we have anything? No.
The rest of the world is recognizing Phasmophobia.
Yeah, I noticed. We managed to be like
Yeah.
a week or two early on that one, I guess. Yeah, no, it seems like Phasmophobia is well loved, which is, I mean,
Yeah.
cool. That game deserves a lot of money. It's a unique idea. It's a good execution. They need to add a lot more stuff to it because I think we can probably all agree it's starting to feel pretty samey. Although
Yeah.
it's still creepy. Like never
Yeah.
stops being creepy. But
There's this new game that I just saw today that seems to kind of follow along that same vein, but I believe it's a single player only experience. It's called Visage, I think it is.
Oh yes, I know about this.
And man, it looks really cool. You're in a house and shit just changes. It's like a psychological
Like a PT.
horror. Yeah,
PT
yeah.
clone.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's also VR. I could be wrong.
you just
I
said
think
the magic 3 words to make me not interested in it.
Yeah, no. I think I am wrong. I am wrong. It is not.
Was PT clone one of those?
Yes. It was, yes.
Single player PT clone.
Oh, our good friend B. Paul and Tran already own this game, so we can ask them what they think
Sure.
about it.
We'll
I think
invite them
it's
on.
I might be wrong, Will, but I think this is the game with the mirrors that we watched that play through. Maybe it was like Abby playing it or something from Giant Bomb.
Oh,
I think that's the game. I can't quite remember because I think I saw that scene also in like a critical gameplay.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. It's so hard to keep track. There's so many like random low budget horror games or like low budget horror movies, and that a million of them come out every single day, and about 3 of them are worth your time.
I could agree with that. I think.
Yeah, even that might be
Yeah.
generous.
Like
Phasmophobia is not quite scary to me yet. I'll admit that. A lot of the like kind of fake spook stuff is like very theatrical on my end, but like I'd like to see it be more scary.
I think the thing that's scary is the kind of build up. Like the build up is the best part of that, where you're getting everything ready and you're not really sure what's going on, and you know, once the ghost has come out once it's come out once, you're like, all right, this is, you know, I mean,
yeah, you don't want you want a little bit of like, a little bit of, you don't want the ghost to just come straight out, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right out, like just out the gate, ghost, boom. Yeah.
Although, I mean, that happens.
Gotta work up to the ghost.
Rarely enough that when it does happen, it's kind of surprising. Like, I mean, there's been some good surprises in us playing that game here and there. And the last time I played on the Asylum level, it was hell. Like, we had a really aggressive ghost that was really far in this place, so there were like making it from the room back to the truck and vice versa was like a gauntlet. Like, you were basically like, okay, we're hiding every few minutes, which is an interesting, it's like different, you know what I mean? It's different than how it is that if you're playing in one of the smaller environments. And I think that kind of stuff is really cool. I also had a moment where you know, up until now, basically the what we do is usually we close the door and we hide, and the ghost generally gives up and goes away. Now they do, some ghosts do phase through doors, it seems like, but that happens so rarely that you're kind of you generally you feel pretty safe when you do that. And I had a moment the other day where I closed the door and I was waiting on my own in the asylum, and I somehow got separated from everybody else, and I was like, everything's gonna be cool. And it was really weird because the ghost came through the door, looked at me, and then turned around and left. I think I was streaming. I was literally like, ah, like I was like drinking or something. I was just like, what the fuck? And then he just went away. And I was like, almost like, I'm sparing you this time, fucker.
Yeah.
Like, just like, goodbye. Like, it was very entertaining. Tran happened to be yelling down the hall at the same time. So I think somebody theorized that the ghost was distracted, like it like went to investigate the yelling, but I don't know that I believe that it's that. I don't know, maybe. The way the ghost seems to work in that game, it has very tunnel vision. Like once it's decided who it's going to kill during the beginning of a hunting phase, it seems like that's the target.
That's the person. Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know if this would throw off the feeling of that game, but one thing I kind of wish they would do is like have the walking mode be like a toggle. It's like the same mechanic, but and like you would want to walk in certain cases, but the way that you're like forced to walk really slow is like genuinely infuriating to me. But I do get that it's like part of the experience. I just think that there's other games that do that. Where like you just kind of easily toggle between them. I would prefer that.
In a lot of cases, it seems like that's intended because they want the ghost to be able to outrun you, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there even a point in having like a second move speed? I feel like in that game there's not. I feel like there should just be one.
Yeah.
Like a set move speed. Like,
I think they could stand to just make the default walk a bit faster and then just leave it at that. Like that's it.
Yeah.
It's a little goofy because even when you are running from the ghost, it's like
you're basically like it's the Leonardo DiCaprio walking meme. Like yeah, no, for sure. It is really silly. That whole game is really silly.
Yeah.
Man, these motherfuckers. This is another anecdote, so whatever. But the other night I was playing, and Merced had never seen that game before, and he was watching us play, and Jacob was describing it to them, and he thought that the ghost, when you talk into the ghost, the spirit box or whatever, and it says, you know how it'll say like catch, and then it'll throw something.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that it was saying cash. He was like, Ghost, are you there? What do you want? Cash. He thought that's what it was saying. And I was like, you dumbass motherfucker. Like, of course, what do you mean cash? It doesn't give a fuck. It's just fucking with you. It's saying catch. Yeah, it like infuriated me. Like everybody just believed him. I was like, you guys are literally all wrong. Yeah, that game's dumb. That game's really stupid, and I love it. It falls in the category of Hell Let Loose, which is a game that I think is extremely good that will become boring if they are not patching it fast enough to add new shit.
Yeah, speaking of, I just uninstalled that game.
No.
I uninstalled that game a while ago, but my internet's fast, so I could have it downloaded again in 13 seconds. But
yeah, my internet is not fast, so that's like the tombstone on
that
game.
Yeah,
I need 3 to 4 business days to reinstall
it. Yeah. You reinstalling a game is like going into a library, like a physical location, and getting like going through
dusting off the tome.
There's a spider trapped in between the pages. Okay, maybe do you guys everybody good? We need to take a break or anything, or how are we feeling? Good. Talk about some games that you played quickly, and then maybe I gotta go get a phone case before D&D tonight, so
you don't drop your phone.
You're not gonna order one like a normal person.
Well, I mean,
physically go.
The Apple Store is like 15 minutes from here. I'm just gonna go but
15 minutes may as well be fucking a mile.
It probably is a mile. I'm not gonna walk there. I'm taking the bus. Yeah, but anybody been playing anything they want to talk about or?
Briefly talked about it already, but I've been playing Mortal Shell. Pretty good. Yeah. Enjoying it so far. Still very, very early on, so.
You gonna see that through? You gonna finish it?
Doubtful.
I value the honesty.
Yeah, I don't finish video games.
Finally, somebody else.
That's the thing about me is I'll get about three quarters. I'll get about 3/4 of the way through that game and then I'll stop if that far.
Will's about to explode.
Yeah. You're gonna play that game for 2 more hours and then immediately forget about it.
Yeah, probably. We played a little bit of Tarkov. That was fun. That was a good time.
Yeah.
We need to get.
We do. Tyler and I played for a few days consecutively as well, and I'm really starting to see the enjoyment in that game, which I think that game really only becomes good if you're willing to play it almost every day. Like, you just have to hone your understanding of how that game works. It's something that is like, I'm gonna do a raid or 2 every day to keep my Tarkov vision sharp, because the way that game functions is so confusing and weird and unlike anything else. And the mechanics and the systems, and you kind of just have to, it has to become closer to second nature, or you're just going to have a bad time. Like, we got hunted down in a way that in past times, I would have fumbled and probably died, and I fucking dome headshotted those 2 guys.
Yeah.
And I was immediately like, I am in this game now. We're going to play this forever. Like, it was just like so. And then I couldn't loot one of the guys because I was bleeding.
You disconnected. You got disconnected, and when you reconnected, your body was so fucked up from your heavy bleed that you couldn't.
This guy shot me in the stomach, and I bled so much that it blacked out all of my limbs, and I couldn't climb up onto the surface where he was to loot his body after I killed him. So I just hobbled my way out of the extraction with nothing other than the satisfaction of having killed a man.
Video games are too violent.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I agree. And the fact that I enjoyed killing them so much.
Your bloodlust is notorious on this show.
Yeah. Tell me why they shot at me first. I mean, let's be real. I was what's the stand your ground? I was standing my ground.
Oh my god. No. Oh, let's Sean, what are you in playing?
Third party libertarian candidate William Chandler enters the race.
Oh god.
I haven't been playing anything because I'm still working out my work-life balance, apparently. But hopefully next week.
Word. Well,
I just want to admit that the 2 games this week that I played were I dusted off that aforementioned PlayStation 3. And because it's the only platform that you can play the original Ratchet and Clank on, other than a PS2, you could, but I don't have one of those. So, that game's great. That game's great. So I'm playing that, and I am playing Dragon Age 2. 2 games that are 10 years old or older. Ratchet and Clank is from 2002, and I think Dragon Age 2 is 2010. Is that right?
Sure.
I think that's right. Came out like the same time as Mass Effect 2. A much better game.
Hey Google.
Frankly.
How old is Dragon Age 2? 9 years old. 2011 initial release date.
Okay,
You're pretty close. Thanks, Google.
Yeah,
You know less than an artificial intelligence.
I think that's by design, my friend.
You dingus.
They listen. The Patriots. Okay, let me tell you about Hideo Kojima predicting the future. All right, I had a thought, like I was thinking about that. Why was I thinking about this? I don't know. I was thinking about how Death Stranding was a prediction of the future, and then it got me to thinking about how Metal Gear Solid 2 was a prediction of the future. And I almost brought this up to a person who I knew would not care. You know what I mean? I was with a partner of mine, and I was making coffee, and I was like, I like, just, you know, when you're in your head about random shit, and I was just standing there in the kitchen, and I started thinking about that, and I was like, oh man, the Patriots, fake news, like all that shit. it's in that video game from 2002. How did he do it? And then I was just like, I was literally like, I want to talk about this so bad. And I like looked at this person who I was about to subject to this, and I made the conscious decision to just not. I was just like, I'm keeping this one to myself.
Dude,
doing this
that's
person
good.
a fucking favor.
At least you're becoming self-aware. That shows progress.
Oh God.
Let's start the first Hideo Kojima church.
There's already one somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna Google that immediately.
We're gonna join.
Yeah, let's join.
Yeah.
Hey Google,
Become sponsors.
Yeah, no, it's what a world we're living in. Anyway, I also played a little bit of Hades. That game's okay.
Just okay.
You know, it's very beautiful. I think the ways in which they contextualize doing multiple runs is really smart. Like, by running through that game and getting farther, you get, well, actually, let me say this. By doing multiple runs, you actually get more story. Like I died to the first major boss twice, and on the second and third attempts to get back there, characters were saying different shit to me, even though I had met them in the first run, and the boss will tell you different shit. Like, it's cool. It's badass. Cool. I think that game's really neat in that way. I don't like run-based video games, so I'm kind of just like, all right, well, playing through the beginning of this game again is not really something I want to do right now.
Do the characters like acknowledge that they've met you before, or is it like a fresh meet every time?
No, yeah, they acknowledge it. They're like, haven't you learned your lesson already? And you're like, no, let's fight. Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, the story of that game is you are the son of Hades, the guy, and you are attempting to escape Hades, hell, in order to do something. They don't really make that clear. You just want to get out, and I assume that kind of thinking unfolds over time. But when you die, you just start over, and your dad's like, "My ungrateful piece of shit son." Trying to leave again, like
just like my real dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's yeah. Everyone acknowledges that you're dying over and over again, but you get gradually stronger by like just playing the game. So it's not like you lose everything and start over. You definitely feel like you're getting better each time. Both mechanically, like you yourself are getting better, but also your character does get stronger.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I'm only like 4-ish hours into that game, so I'd need to play a lot more to really have like a strong verdict on it. But I think the art direction and the like, Supergiant is the development studio. When they make a video game, it is, you can guarantee, going to be one of the most smartly designed things. Like, it's just, everything is so fine-tuned, and just all the mechanics and systems and the menus and sometimes even the story in relation to the way the gameplay works. They're just, everything is so beautifully intertwined. It's like a perfect machine. Like, it's wild. I would say that their games are as close as you can get to like objective perfection of the idea of what a video game should be. It's just like whether you like them or not. And I like some of them not at all, and some of them I like a lot. So it's interesting. But yeah, it's pretty the achievement of such a small development studio making something that has this much dialogue and this much gameplay and this many different ways you can do things is pretty impressive. Kind of like Disco Elysium in that way. Like, that game just,
oh man,
how did they do that? It's beyond me. Anyway, I think that's it. I think that'll do it.
I think so.
Done it.
I think that'll do it. That's a wrap. This one's maybe, I don't know, I guess an hour and 30 is kind of usually what we end up on, huh? Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for talking. Who are talking, thank you for talking. You who are listening, thank you for listening. We'll be back.
Podcasting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you podcast, is to podcast to be a podcaster, or is it to listen to podcasts?
I think there's podcasters and there's podcastees, or those who get podcasted upon.
Those who have the podcast thrust upon them.
Yeah.
And those who thrust the podcast.
Who do the thrusting. Yeah.
I see. So we're podcasters.
Yeah.
What are we? Are we gamers first or podcasters first?
Finally, I can tell people I'm a podcaster.
Are we humans or are we podcasters?
That's a good podcast title.
That is a good
I'll have to think. I'll have to think on that, but I think that might be the winner. Acknowledging the title of the podcast in the podcast, I feel like makes me 300% less likely to do it. Like, I think we had a good one last time, and I specifically went with a different one because I thought it'd be funny to have in the episode, you're like, that's the podcast title, and then it's not.
Then it's not.
But that's very good. I'll keep that in mind. Cool.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's the title of the podcast now.
Yes. As always, we'll be back with more talk about video games. I think who knows, we might, we seem to record on a pretty random schedule here, but I guarantee you the week that the consoles come out, there will be an episode of this podcast. That is the truth.
God, that is bold.
Unless we die before then.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Who knows? Let's have an election night special. Let's record a podcast.
Nothing like fucking game podcasters holding an election night.
Yep. Everybody wants to hear our opinions on who to vote for.
Yeah, I'm sure
if you don't go to the polls and write in Bernie Sanders' name, you are doing nothing for this country.
Oh, no. God.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yep. Bye. That's the podcast. All right.
Nice job, guys.
Good work.